thinking through parenting in your 40s and aligning fertility treatment with your faith. That's what we're talking about today here on Hope, Faith, and Infertility, a podcast brought to you by Southeastern Fertility in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm Mark Mellinger, your host, and joining me today is Ingrid Cox, one of our Southeastern Fertility moms and one of our favorites. Ingrid was actually the very first podcast guest that we ever had. And at that point, Ingrid, you were looking forward to having a baby at Christmas time. It was like the best Christmas present ever. So before we get to the other stuff that I know we both want to talk about, tell me about Trey. You have had your baby since then. In fact, it's been a while.
It has. I was thinking about that just a few days ago, and I couldn't believe that it's been so long. And I remembered that I was actually pregnant at the time that we did the last podcast. So he really was a Christmas baby. Trey was born on December 21st, 2022. Wonderful delivery. My pregnancies have been great. I didn't gain a lot of weight, but with Trey, so Trey was my second baby. So with Trey, I think he was just like on a nerve near my hip or something, because I was always in pain in my hips with him. So I was very happy to deliver him, not only to meet him and welcome him to the family, but to get rid of that pain in my hips. But it was a wonderful Christmas present. I had a C-section, but we were able to come home for Christmas. I think it was Christmas morning. We actually came home and there was family waiting for us, extended family. My mom was here, my husband's mom, his siblings, my siblings. So it was wonderful. It was a little different because, we were coming out of COVID somewhat, but still not really out of it. So I wasn't able to have visitors in the hospital. Luckily, my husband could spend the night with me, but we also have London. So he had to leave in the evenings and put her to bed and get her to school and stuff like that. But it was a wonderful Christmas present, 2021.
And right, it was December 2021, and London was
Yeah.
your baby from November 2019, who you had through Dr. John Gordon when he was still in Northern Virginia. So it sounds like, am I right, the second pregnancy and delivery were harder than the first?
A little bit harder. The pregnancy was just uncomfortable. It wasn't even painful, so I really can't complain. It was just that hip pain. But the delivery was great. He was very healthy. He was 8 pounds, 10 ounces when he was born. He was a quiet baby though. Like, he's very laid back. It's funny, when he was born, he was just very laid back. He cried a little bit, like, what's going on? But then he was pretty quiet and mellow, and that's exactly how his personality is now. And I have to say that that's his dad's personality.
Well, he's super cute. You've shared pictures with us from time to time of both of your kids. They're both adorable. And by the way,
Yeah,
if you want to see them, you can go onto the
thank
Southeastern
you.
Fertility website, because Ingrid and Winston and their family are right there on the
Like,
front page. Let me
such an
ask.
honor.
Oh, we love it. We love it. It's a great looking family. So let me ask you this. What would you say, Ingrid, to prepare someone who's preparing to go down the road that you went down, in your 40s and now parenting two kids, 3 and younger? That's a lot. What would you say, any lessons that you would be able to give to another mom?
Yes, I'll be honest. It's not easy. It's definitely a blessing. You work so hard, you go through so much. It's expensive, it's stressful, it's very time consuming, it's very emotional. We're very, very grateful to have both children, both healthy. They have a great relationship already, but it is not easy. And as you mentioned, with age, my husband and I got started a little later in the process. Got married a little bit later and started our family a little bit later. So our energy level is not that of a 20-year-old or even a 30-year-old. So we have to stay healthy. I have to be honest, like, we have to stay active. We want to be able to run around with our kids, get on the floor and play with them, and be able to get back up. So we try to make sure that we're staying healthy, physically, eating right. Also, we, believe it or not, like we've had a little bit of difficulty getting them to sleep on the same schedule. They're actually sharing a room. So we put Trey down first and London down maybe an hour later. But for us, sleep is essential. So if we can kind of tag team and someone needs to get their rest for the next day, and we just kind of help each other out with that in that sense. And we just try to keep the kids active. London is in a lot of activities. But as far as self-care, I mean, you definitely have to make it a priority. So I still have my regular beauty appointments, massage appointments. I still go to acupuncture. Acupuncture was vital in the IVF journey for me. So I still do some maintenance there, and just working out for stress relief, walking, whatever I can do, talking to a girlfriend. Actually recently done some parenting classes together just to try to learn a little bit more about what we can do better, how to make sure the kids are healthy and growing properly mentally and physically. But I think, to be honest, the advice I would give is to make sure that you're taking time for yourself, nurturing your relationship, your marriage, and also the relationship with God. Because I can tell you that getting on my knees and praying for strength or patience, I have to do that. And I feel like God is the person to go to when I'm, both kids are screaming or running around and I just need to center myself a little bit. Meditation and praying has helped a lot too.
It's interesting. That's really helpful. Now, conversely, I've thought about this before. I'm 47 now, and we had our kids when we were young. I mean, I was 24 and 25. And so, and then we were done. We had our two and we were done. And I thought before exactly what you said. It's nice to have more energy. You do have more energy when you're in your mid-20s than when you're in your 40s. But I've also thought
Yeah.
conversely, and let me know if you've experienced this, that you do have a certain amount of wisdom and maturity, and that you have having children a little bit later in life, that somebody like me, like something like I did not have when our kids were born. And so I think that may be an advantage that younger people don't have. Have you seen that to be the case at all?
Yes, I have to say, I think I probably have more patience now than I did when I was younger. My husband and I spend a lot of time with the kids. So, they're in school or daycare a lot during the week, and we try to spend as much time with them as we can at night. But on the weekends, it's just the four of us doing whatever, getting out to get some fresh air or doing whatever we need to do. I think that it helps that we both had, this kind of lifestyle that we wanted. We traveled and had our fun previously, but I think that as you're older, I just definitely feel like we have more patience. We're definitely more grateful, especially with the process that we went through to get the kids here. And to be honest with you, financially, I know that we were both in different situations when we were in our 20s and probably in our 30s. So being a lot more settled and established in our career, we definitely have a greater income than we had before. And kids are not cheap.
Oh, no, they are not, and getting more expensive
Yes.
all the time. We
Right.
just got done getting our two through college, so I can certainly
Oh,
attest that.
congratulations.
Oh,
That's
thanks.
wonderful.
Yeah, it's a big accomplishment,
Yeah.
but to your point, certainly not cheap. I can echo that. I did want to talk about a couple things that were really important parts of your journey, and you mentioned one, uh, the acupuncture. I'm interested in you talking about how you think that helped. And Ingrid, I know you also had at least Trey. I don't think you had London through natural cycle. I may be wrong on that, but you did have Trey through natural cycle IVF, and that is a less invasive form of IVF. Talk about those two elements and what they meant to you in terms of the success of your fertility journey.
Acupuncture was introduced to me as I started the IVF journey. I had never done it before, and I didn't know that it could be so beneficial. Um, Prior to even starting the cycle, I was going on a weekly basis to get acupuncture, stabilize your body. I was taking different vitamins to build up, my system in preparation for the process. I should say the acupuncture, my acupuncturist is someone who specializes in infertility and IVF. So he was guiding me. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how frequently I needed to go. And he had so many success stories that he was able to just kind of guide me through the process, let me know how often I needed to go. During the IVF process itself, again, he guided me and told me, okay, you need to come in on this date. When are you doing your I'm sorry, when are you doing your
Your cycle,
egg retrieval?
egg retrieval.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
When are you doing your egg retrieval? I had to kind of time it specifically, especially for that process, and then especially for the frozen embryo transfer that we experienced. So it was very beneficial. And as I mentioned, I'm still going today. It helps with so many different parts of your body, but stress, postpartum, all of those things, it's very beneficial. It's not painful, because that's one thing I think was a misconception for me. I thought because needles are utilized that it would be painful. No pain at all. But definitely beneficial, very helpful. I remember my first session, I actually fell asleep, and I mean, that was wonderful. I just was so calm, and it was just so relaxing. It's really addictive. So it's been very beneficial, utilizing acupuncture throughout the entire process and postpartum. And I'm sorry, I forgot your other question that you wanted to speak about.
Well, no, I think that's a great place to go first off, because those of our patients, which is most who do live in the Knoxville area, Tennessee reproductive acupuncture is really just not very far down the street, and the team there offers a terrific service for people who are interested in that. And that's something that maybe people who are new to the journey, or just have had a different sort of experience, hadn't really thought about before. So I'm glad that you brought that up as part of your journey. The other part of your journey that I wanted to talk about was doing natural cycle IVF. Now, this is a form of IVF that not everybody knows about. It's less invasive on the body. You don't have all the shots. You're after one egg. So there are a lot of good reasons to do it. And that's how you got Trey, your 1-year-old.
Yes, I actually did natural cycle for both my daughter London and for Trey, our son. It was a welcome relief when Dr. Gordon said that I was a candidate. So I was someone who had regular periods, never really had a lot of issues as far as that went. And when he said that I could do natural cycle, it was just so exciting, because in learning about the IVF process, I knew that there were a lot of drugs involved, possibly a lot of hormones, and then the shots alone were a little scary, I have to admit. So it was great to hear that I didn't have to go to, I don't want to call it extreme, but I went on a more natural route with not so many drugs and not so many shots. I mean, you still have to take some shots, but it's definitely not as bad as it could be. And I don't even know if I'm if I'm making this sound very pleasant, but you have to remember the ultimate goal is to have a baby. So if you're a candidate for natural cycle, it's definitely less invasive, more attuned to your natural period and your natural cycle of your body. So it was a great experience, I have to say.
It's also less expensive. Now, the chances of successfully conceiving are not, or successfully achieving pregnancy and childbirth per cycle are not the same, but the chances are not bad, and it can be a more economical option for some people as well. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Now, as we talked about the first time you were on, faith is a big part of this podcast, and you had mentioned, Ingrid, because I do want to get to that part of your story. You had mentioned that you grew up Catholic, had always been a Christian. So having children later in life, that being the case, were you at all leery of doing fertility treatment because of your faith background? Some people are, some people aren't. Was that a thought at all in your mind?
It may have crossed my mind a little bit. I didn't feel like it would be looked down upon by the Catholic Church. Um, I wanted to make sure that my life was stable. I wanted to make sure that I had a partner and that I was married prior to having children and bringing them into the world. So I was very specific about that. And I think that, I mean, I prayed about it for so long. I prayed for my husband. I prayed for my family and my children. And it's very humbling that God grants, the desires of your heart. So that alone was humbling. But I think that I just tried to focus on the fact that, I've been a Christian person. I love God. He's the center of my life for my entire life. And I just felt that this is something that I really wanted. It was a desire of my heart. And I felt that if it did happen, that it was supposed to happen and it was by the grace of God. So I didn't overthink it. I didn't want to get stuck on, trying to overanalyze and figure out if I'm being judged or if I'm doing the wrong thing. I just stayed in faith and stayed in prayer, and the doors opened up and everything just seemed to fall right into place. So I think that was very encouraging for me, and it made me feel like I was doing the right thing.
And I love that you said you were willing to accept God's will, whatever that is.
Yeah.
You being a Christian, you know that He doesn't always give us the desires of our heart at the
Yes.
moment. He still gives us Himself, though. So I think it's great that you were you're not overthinking it, but yet looking at it very realistically, knowing if I don't get what I'm hoping for here, it doesn't change who God is, and I will accept His will. It's also great that you put parameters on how you were going to become a parent. I think you honored the Lord there, and He ended up honoring that. Let me ask you, Ingrid, just last of all, are you able to explain at all how you sensed and felt God's presence during your journey to parenthood? And I don't just mean, when you were actually going through the treatment and when you were pregnant, although sure, I mean, it can include that, but obviously this was a longer journey than that. How did you sense His presence speaking to you throughout?
That's a very good question. To be honest with you, I think that I felt God's presence and I heard His voice just in times of quiet. So I would often, as I mentioned, I prayed for my husband. I wanted to be married for a long time, but of course, you want to be married to the right person. And I learned that it's all in God's timing. So as we mentioned at the start of this podcast, we were older and, things may not always happen when you want them to happen. I think I heard God's voice the most in times of quiet. So very early in the morning, very late at night. I pray before I go to bed. I pray in the mornings, but just to be very honest with you, just that moment when you wake up in the morning, there were a lot of times where I was just still. It's before I started where my mind started to race and figure out what my day was going to entail. And I just always felt a sense of calm and peace and encouragement, if that makes sense. So, as I said earlier, I didn't overthink things. And I just always felt not even a nudge, but just affirmation, if that makes sense, that I was on the right path and doing the right thing. I needed to take my time, pace myself, do things the right way, stay in prayer, remember that God is the center of it all. But I think as I would approach important events or surgeries, egg retrievals, trigger shot, whatever it was, I would always feel a sense of peace and acknowledgement that everything was going to be okay. And as you said, whatever that may be, I just felt like I needed to keep going through the process. So there was a sense of peace that came along with going through the process. I didn't feel stressed or scared or angry. I was just in acceptance of whatever happened.
Well, that is exemplary, and God has certainly blessed you with two beautiful kids in London and Trey, and a great husband in Winston. So it's all worked out. Now, I guess the next question is, are we ever going to see you all here in Knoxville again?
I have to be honest. Yes, you're going to see us again. Short answer. I have to be honest. When Trey was about 6 months old, Winston looked over at me and we were celebrating his 6-month birthday. So this was his first piece of cupcake and frosting, and we had a little candle in there. We were singing to him and just feeling very emotional and sentimental. And he looked at me and said, "Do you want to have another one?" And I would love to, but we're very tired. We're very tired and very grateful, but our hands are full. So in the medical sense, you're not going to see us again, but we will definitely we'll definitely come and visit before the kids start kindergarten. How's that?
Well, I think that is what I was asking. I want you to don't. I sorry that you took that the wrong way. I was not trying to enforce that on you. I figured you were done in a medical sense.
Yes.
I'm just saying we'd love to see you. So bring the family sometime before kindergarten. That sounds like a good deal to me.
We definitely will.
Ingrid, thanks so much. It's always such a joy talking to you. And if you'd like to learn more about Southeastern Fertility, you can go to our website at southeasternfertility.org.